While running for his life in the woods, bullying victim Ju stumbles upon a shotgun and just enough shells for his classmates. It's a recipe for disaster. But fate takes an unexpected turn when he returns to find his classmates under attack by brain-eating creatures. Now, the only thing that stands in the way of their ravenous feast is a boy with a shotgun. The story begins with Ju sitting on his seat, and someone puts a drawing on his shirt with "loser" written on it. He turns back to see who did this and finds a student behind him. Seon asks what he's looking at and if he wants to get beaten up. Seon says if he turns around next time, he'll hit. Ju hesitates but turns back. The boys laugh at him for being a coward and Ju clenches his pencil in anger. Seon tells the fatty to draw another one as the last one wasn't funny, and he obliges. He pats on his back and says if the drawing doesn't meet the standard, he'll beat him. Seon sees Ju trembling and asks if he has got a problem. He says if he has to cower in fear, then he should do something about it and says to try to hit him. However, Ju doesn't do anything and Seon says he'll talk with him later. Ju remembers that he heard the same thing earlier. He followed him but was only beaten and thrown into the trash. 3 people ganged up on him and hurt him badly. He trembles in anger with sweat appearing on his hands. He looks at the teacher and thinks about telling her. Ju suddenly stands up and everyone looks at him. The teacher asks Ju about why he stood up suddenly. Ju replies that he's getting bullied. He says they beat him up at least 3 times a week. The teacher asks what she has to do with this. Ju continues that they extorted about $1,000 from him. He also shows her the drawing they stuck back at him. The teacher looks at the lousy drawing and bursts into laughter. Seeing their teacher laugh, the students also laugh at him. He stands there silent while everyone makes fun of him. The teacher tries to control her laughter and asks who did this to him. He points to Seon sitting behind him. The teacher says if that's the case, then what does he expect her to do? Ju thought that the teacher would help him, not question him, and this made him even more angry. The teacher tells him to get back in his seat and avoid interrupting her again. Ju says he knew something like this would happen. He reaches out for something wrapped in a cloth in his bag. He throws the cloth away and points the gun at her. The teacher was stunned that he pulled out a gun suddenly and asked what is he doing. Ju says what she thinks he will do. He pulls the trigger and kills her. Nobody can comprehend what just happened. The moment of silence breaks with students running wildly for their lives. They try to get out through the door but it won't budge. The girl screams for it to open and Ju kills her as well. Next, he points his gun at the fatty who drew him and he kills him without mercy. He points his gun at another student. The terrified student says he has nothing to do with it, so why is he killing him? He kills him nonetheless. He starts killing every single student of the class and the window gets painted red. In the end, he slaughtered every student and stands amidst it. Seon tries to get away from him. However, Ju slowly approaches him and corners him against the wall. Seon apologizes for doing all those wrong things and begs for mercy with tears filled in his eyes. However, Ju kills him mercilessly. He lowers his gun and thinks he completed his revenge, but it turns out he was just dreaming about it. He gets up from his bed and wishes it wasn't a dream. The scene shifts to the school bus going somewhere. The students inside chat with each other and have fun. A boy complains about clouds being dark and thinks they may have to return. The teacher tells the students to stop roaming and take their seats. As for Ju, he's sitting alone. He reads a message from his friend, Crew, asking why his trip wasn't canceled. He replies he doesn't know. Crew texts that he's in the same room with the people bullying him. He looks back and sees the bullies having fun. Suddenly, Seon steps up and comes to Ju's seat. He says they would toy with him when they reach there. He asks his friend if they have to be in the same room. His friend replies there's no need and they can swap with each other if he wants. The students reach the destination and the teacher organizes them in rows. They tell them to hand over their phones. They remind them to write their name on the label. One by one, student began putting their phone in the bag. The students complain about what's wrong with them confiscating their phones. They believe it might rain soon and hope to stay indoors as much as possible. However, Ju is busy looking at his phone. He tells Crew they are taking the phone and will contact him later. The teacher tells the students to quiet down, asking if they are here to play, and the students reply what else they are here for. One teacher says they will inspect their bags and asks them to neatly arrange everything on the ground. A student makes fun of him acting like they are in for military training. A girl asks Shin if she hid the item well. If they find it and take it away, she's going to kill her. Shin assures her that she hid it well. Before inspecting the bags, the teacher hopes that they are better than the kids who came here last week. After the inspection is done, he tells them to do 30 jumping jacks. All the students struggle to keep up and Gyuhwan has its worst as he's not good physically. He screams out his last set and thinks he made a blunder. They were told not to scream their last set, and if they did, their whole group had to do another set. His group members are annoyed at him and he apologizes to everyone. At night the students are sleeping peacefully but a mosquito interrupts their sleep. Gyuhwan tries his best to kill the mosquito with his bare hands but fails at it. His roommate tells him to keep quiet. Turns out, Seon has tasked him to kill mosquitoes tonight, and if he finds a single bite on him, he'll have to face the consequences. Gyuhwan replies that he'll try harder and goes back to killing mosquitoes again. When he kills one, the boy tells him to keep it down and Gyuhwan apologizes. At the same time, a few girls are doing dance practice. Mira scolds another one to take this seriously. She apologizes for making a mistake, but Mira bashes her for making their performance bad because of her silly mistakes. Her friends told her to calm down, they didn't have time to practice because she kept changing the song. Mira cusses at them, asking if she's the one at fault here. A supervisor strolls in and asks what they are doing here at this hour. Mira replies they have a performance tomorrow and are practicing for it. They already have permission from the teacher and will wrap things up quickly. The supervisor sighs and tells them to keep things down and go back to their rooms at a reasonable hour. When he leaves, she curses at him for not minding his own business. Mira goes somewhere and her friends ask where she's going. She says she's going to the bathroom and tells them to keep practicing. She sits in the washroom and smokes a cigar. She thinks that at this rate, she'll become a laughingstock. She doesn't want Seon to look down at her. The door creaks and someone enters it. She gets annoyed that she couldn't have a cigarette in peace. The voice says that it smells like an electric cigarette. The person slowly walks through the bathroom stalls and stops in front of hers. Mira asks if she's Sujin, and even though she tries to change her voice, she knows it's her. She tells her to cut the crap and get lost. The voice says that he likes this smell and Mira shudders in fear. Soon shadows of tentacles began forming above her. When she looks up, she gets horrified at the scene. Those tentacles attack her and she desperately tries to get away from its grasp, but that thing pulls her away. Soon, a note gets pasted on the bathroom being out of order where Mira went earlier. At the archery range, a few students are taking the shots. One student misses the target and complains about missing it again. His friend says he could never make a shot with a temper like that. He teaches that archery requires zen. He asks where Seon is and the other replies that he's at the nurse's office for anemia. Their attention shift to someone hitting the bullseye twice. A girl stands calm after making the perfect shot. The boy is impressed on seeing her and it's a first love on sight. He tells his friend how awesome she is. However, he says to go tell her if he's going to keep saying it. But he doesn't have the guts to say it to her. He raises the bow for another shot while his friend makes fun of him. He misses once again and says that archery sucks. He thinks, why is he even going through this pain? He throws his bow and says he's done with him in this stupid game. In the evening, an announcement is made for students to change their uniforms and gather in the auditorium. They also inform the talent show participants to meet in front of the administrative office. Seon, while lying in his room, thinks about the trip ending so soon. He rises and says that it's a bit disappointing. He talks about something missing here and wants to make this trip remarkable. Chan asks if he's thinking about alcohol. He further says that if they get caught it would be problematic, so they didn't bring any. However, Seon says there's still hope. He remembers that the supervisor collected all the bottles he found from the students and made them go through brutal punishment. In the teacher's lounge, two teachers are playing cards. The English teacher throws his card and wins the game. Lee asks him if he ever played this game before, as he's too good at this. However, Jay tells him that it's truly his first time and says, "Mr. Lee, you are not good at this game." Another female teacher asks if won't she see the kids' talent show. Kim replies that she has no interest in it. She's sure that the staff there will keep a good eye on them. Director Lee coughs and says that maybe they should go. Since the kids worked hard to prepare, so they should show them a little support. Behind Lee, there's a locker with confiscated items of students kept in it, and Seon is discussing the same thing with his friend. He tells him he saw them keep all that wine in there. He just happened to see it while he was going to the nurse's office. He saw the old man taking sips of it in secret. He says the locker is in the back of the lounge and they can't miss it. However, his friend says it's risky to sneak in there. Seon says that it's almost time for the talent show and the girls will be dancing to K-pop. He's sure that the old geezer won't miss it and will drag other teachers with him as well, so he doesn't look like a perv. He says they aren't going to be the ones to be sneaking in, and his friend gets confused. Sion says that Gyu would help them here. Gyu looks back to see them and Sion orders him to bring them the booze. Also, if he were to get caught and mention their name, he would face dire consequences. However, Gyu replies he can't do this. Chan pushes him and asks if he wants a beatdown. Gyu bows down and says he doesn't want to get into any trouble. His dad is sick and in the hospital right now. He's heartbroken enough that he has to be at home alone. If he ever finds out that he got into trouble, then he won't be able to handle that stress. Sion chuckles and says he knows that he lives alone. They hung out at his place last time and threw Gyu at one corner after beating him up. Sion tells him that even if he gets caught, they won't expel him out of the school for stealing just a few bottles. He scolds him not to be so dramatic. He also mentions that Gyu hurt his feelings now. Sion says that he's afraid of his father's condition getting worse, but he isn't afraid of him. He asks if this friendship means nothing to him, and Chan also says he's being too cold here. Sion demands to know if this friendship is more important than his father's. Gyu becomes terrified and begs Sion to stop this. Sion tells Chan to bring him a mosquito repellent. He says if he doesn't answer, he'll make him eat this. He asks again what's more important to him. He breaks a piece of the repellent and says he's waiting. Gyu confesses that the friendship means more to him. With tears rolling from his eyes and making a fake smile, he says this friendship is more important. Suddenly, Sion smacks him in the face and Gyu hits the wall hard. Sion says that he's such a terrible son. He's so afraid of taking a little beating that he threw his dad under the bus for it. Sion says he would be ashamed to call him his son if he was to be his dad. He tells Chan to come with him and distress a bit in the talent show. When they are about to leave, Gyu rises and says he feels even worse for his parents. They must be devastated to have a shit stain like him for a son. Gyu imagined it many times when he could finally stand up to Sion. Sion looks at him and calls out his name. He makes an ugly face and asks if he wants to say that again. When Gyu sees him like that, he becomes terrified and all the courage leaves his body. Sion looms over him and asks if he wants to die today. Gyu sees that his closest escape option is through the window, so he runs desperately towards it. He opens the window and hops over the ledge. Chan asks if he's really going to jump from there. As he said that, Gyu jumped over the window and landed on the edge of the wall. However, his feet slip and he falls to the ground. Despite the pain, he still tries running. Sion says he'll be a dead meat when he catches him, saying that he too jumps out of the window to pursue Gyu. Gyu runs through the forest while thinking about his next plan of action. He had never seen Sion make that face and he's now afraid of facing him. He thinks if he gets caught, then he'll be good as dead. At the same time, the girls talk about how their yesterday practice got screwed because of Mira. They complain about Mira bringing up the idea and leaving them in the dark suddenly. Yesterday, Mira looked serious after she came from the bathroom. Her friend asks if she's feeling better and if they can begin their practice. One girl nudges Hei asking if she won't mess this time. Suddenly, Mira says she's quitting. Her friend becomes confused and asks why she's quitting all of a sudden. However, Mira doesn't reply and walks past them, while the girl keeps asking for the reason. They think about what's gotten into her and Hei notices blood stains on Mira's back. In the present, her friend complains that she's acting weird since last night. They ask Hei about Mira since she is in the same room as hers. She replies she tried to talk but Mira didn't say anything. Yesterday night they all were sleeping and Hei looked at Mira. She gets up from his bed and asks if she's mad because she keeps messing up her steps. She tells her that she can't just quit because of her. She asks how can she be selfish and isn't behaving properly with the other two. However, she was just imagining herself talking to Mira but wasn't able to say it. She believes they are supposed to be friends and gets afraid to confront her. Suddenly, she hears Mira mumbling. She starts blurting out that she's Mira, she attended middle school, and is the youngest child. She has 2 brothers and was born in Busan. She wants to be a K-pop star and has a YouTube channel called Mira's Miracles. She has 13,000 subscribers and 4,000 views per video. She's a heavy smoker and switched to electronic cigarettes recently. She doesn't take school seriously and likes the bully Sion. She says she has memorized it all. When Hei tells them about this to her friends, they too creep out. A girl asks Hei if she even talked to her last night and another girl points out that Hei is scared as a little mouse. Hei explains that Mira wasn't sleep-talking and feels that something isn't right with her. She also explains that she found some weird stench coming from Mira. It was very unusual and something she never smelt before. Suddenly, Mira with a grave expression stands in front of her. Hei creeps out and gets back on the jump scare. Mira asks Hei if she's alright. Her friends look at her puzzled and demand an explanation for her actions. She walked out on them yesterday and it's almost time for the show. However, Mira with a creepy smile tells them not to worry. She says today's show will be incredible. At the auditorium, the talent show began and students cheer in excitement. Students find the announcer quite amusing and better than before. The show began and a group of boys dance on the stage. The audience says they are hot except for the one in the back. Outside the auditorium, the supervisor discusses that 2 students are missing. He counted them and 2 boys are missing from class 1. He further asks what they should do about it. With a creepy smile, the other says to forget about them and have some fun here. Back at the forest, Gyu is panting heavily. He thinks he ran too far and doesn't where he is. He looks around and sees nothing except dense trees. He tries to calm himself down and says he can figure this out. He goes through the bushes and sees a steep slope down. He wonders how he could climb down with it being so dark. However, his luck shines and he sees the moonlight making the path visible. He slowly slides down while holding branches. However, his luck ends quickly when the moon hides behind the clouds. He complains about not being able to see anything and his feet slip on one of the rocks. He starts rolling down the cliff and gets thrown out of it. In his last moments, he wonders if he would die like this. If he knew something like this was going to happen, then he would have kept his mouth shut. Soon after, he falls to the ground with a thud. On the other hand, Sion is looking for Gyu in the forest and complains about not being able to see him. He sees that it's about to rain and decides to head back. At the talent show, a boy is playing an instrument, but the audience doesn't quite like it. They tell him to get off the stage while throwing stuff at him. Amidst the chaos, a boy asks Chan if he saw Sion anywhere, but he doesn't know anything after Sion jumped out of the window. The organizer says that students didn't quite like the performance and says not to worry as they have one more act left. They will have Mira and her friends from class 2 perform next. They are called the Miracle Girls and will be doing an exciting dance cover. Everyone starts cheering for Mira on hearing her up next. All the lights turn off and students discuss that it's going to be spectacular. The teacher ponders if turning off the lights is a part of the act as well. The students complain about why the show is not beginning. Soon the light turns on and they see Mira standing there covered in blood. The students and teachers alike remain confused, asking if this is also a part of the act. Mira stretches out her hand and welcomes everyone. She smiles creepily and asks if they enjoyed their retreat. The students look confused on hearing it. The guards that were standing outside also came in and blocked the exit. Students see the guards and feel something amiss. Mira says that it's time for them to feast on their brain. Outside, Gyu is lying unconscious in the heavy rainfall. He gets up and clutches his chest. He heaves desperately and tries to calm himself down. Suddenly, he starts laughing wildly, exclaiming he made it out alive after tumbling down a cliff. However, his happiness is short-lived as he doesn't where he's at. He sees a shotgun lying near him. He looks at it closely and wonders how it came here. He then looks up and finds a truck tilted on the ground and crushed from one side. He wonders what a moving truck is doing here in the middle of nowhere. He inspects the truck and sees the driver's window broken. He then picks up the gun lying on the ground and inspects it. He wonders if it's a real gun and goes to check the back of the truck. He sees a huge dent in the back and deduces that someone tried to bust it through from the inside. He tries to peek in through the gap but couldn't see anything. He was about to open it when he heard bushes rustling from the back. He turns around and sees a student standing in the forest watching him. When he looks closely, that person turns out to be Sion. On seeing him, Gyu stumbles and falls to the ground while losing the grip of the gun. When he looks back, Sion has already vanished from there. He grabs his gun and demands Sion to come out of the hiding. He says he has a gun, a real gun. However, he doesn't get a reply from him. Sion comes from his side and says he's acting strange, and Gyu points his gun at him. Sion asks why there's a moving truck here and rolled onto its side, no less. Sion says he wouldn't expect to find a gun in a moving truck like that. He tells him to hand over the gun as it could be dangerous. However, Gyu tells him to keep his distance. When Sion approaches Gyu, he threatens to shoot. Sion asks if he's sure about that and if he thinks that a wet gun will fire. He comes close to him and grabs the gun while saying he doesn't know how to use this thing. Gyu gets frightened and Sion demands him to hand it over. However, Gyu resists and tells him to let go of it. Sion says that a weapon like this has no role in the hands of a loser. This makes Gyu angry and he snatches back his gun from him. He clocks the gun and points it at him. He tells Sion that this gun belongs to him and shoots him with it. Sion falls to the ground and Gyu again aims his gun at him, saying this gun belongs to him. He pulls the trigger on his face in anger and pants heavily after shooting him. However, the body vanishes from that spot and leaves behind a pool of blood. He wonders how Sion's body disappeared and what's going on here. He looks at his weapon and remembers the time he played a similar arcade game. Gyu's friend was playing a zombie shooter with a shotgun in his hand. He gets an S rank and sets a new high score. Gyu compliments him on setting a new high score. However, Crew replies that he just got lucky. He hands him the shotgun and tells him to give it a try, but Gyu denies it as he never played a shooting game before. However, Crew persists and says there's a first time for everything. Gyu starts playing the game and sets the new high score. Crew wonders how he did it, and Gyu is amazed as well. Crew asks if this is his first time, and he replies yes with nervous laughter. Crew asks why he was so serious about it, as if he was in a real zombie apocalypse. Gyu tells him he imagined the zombies to be his bully. He wants to do the same thing to those bullies as he did to these zombies, kill them all one by one. In the present, Gyu is crouching on the truck. He opens the truck door and inspects its interior. Inside, he finds a full pack of shotgun magazines with 30 shells. He calculates that there are 29 people in his class, and if he counts the teacher as well, then that makes the total 30. Back at the school, Mira talks about feasting on their brains. The students whisper about what she's talking about. The organizer says that she should have told them earlier if she was switching her act. However, Mira tells him she's not interested in eating his brain. When he questions her, she grabs the man's face. She says although she is not interested in eating him, she can't let him live. Saying this, she twists the man's head and he falls. Others look surprised and think that the act looks too real. They wonder if they should be thrilled or scared. Suddenly, Mira jumps from the podium and lands among the students. Tentacles begin stretching out from her forehead, arms and legs. The students get terrified of seeing the monstrosity. Mira says that she will take out the trash here. She uses her tentacles to kill multiple students at once. After that, Mira stands in front of fresh students ready to be killed. One of the students tells others to run. They began running away from there, and among the chaos, some students fall and get stomped. Every student stopped when they saw the supervisors guarding the exit. They tell them that no one will leave this place. Students ask who are they to stop them. The supervisor pulls out his tongue and says they are monsters. They kill more students and Lee asks the PE teacher to do something. He grabs a chair and Lee pushes him to save the children. He charges at the monster and smacks his head with it. He pants heavily but gets terrified to see the man get back. He forms a huge arm and says they are not on the same level. He kills the teacher in one hit and grins at it. He thinks that his head exploded while other students grow horrified. The man scares the children and they run away. Chan asks Sang to do something about it, but he doesn't have any idea how to deal with them. He doesn't want the same thing to happen to him as the PE teacher. The man approaches the student from one side, and Mira comes from the other side. All students and teachers hurtle together in the center. One man tells everyone to listen up. He'll ask them a question, and all they have to do is raise their hand if they find it relatable to them. His first question is about anyone being rich here. No one raises their hand and the man gets disappointed. One student raises his hand and the man asks how rich he is. The student replies that his grandfather owns a large construction company and his father is a national assemblyman. The man removes his cap and asks if he only has money and power. When the student asks the reason, he stabs him in the head. He starts sucking his blood through the tentacle and the student dies. The man picks up his glasses and says that was a silly question. He puts on the glasses and tells them to get ready for the next question. Students panic on seeing a dead student. They beg them not to kill them as they are poor and have zero talents. One of them says that he gets the worst grades and is dumb as a rock. A tentacle comes out of the man's eye and says he sure looks like a dumb child and kills him. Students and teachers alike are horrified to witness another murder. One of the men talks to the foreign teacher and asks if he's an English teacher from abroad. He says he looks fit and approaches him. A girl among the crowds asks what they are. She boldly comes out from the group of students and faces them. She tells them they will kill all of them anyway. She accepts her fate, but she demands to at least know who they are. While she talks to them, she reaches for the blade in her pocket. She holds it behind her hand and says they are not some brainless beast. so they should at least tell them about it. The man comes towards her and removes her cap, since she asked for it, so he'll show her who they truly are. The man shapeshifts into another human being and asks if telling her would make a difference. He places his hand on her shoulders and says he has gotten close to her. She could use the little blade she's hiding and see if she can kill him, since she thought she could be a hero, so in that case only death awaits her. He starts squeezing her neck and says she should have stayed quiet. Mira intervenes and says that the owner of the body hates her. The man asks Mira if she found this girl in her memory, and Mira replies that she was painfully jealous of her. Shin thinks that the monster inherited Mira's hate. The man tosses her aside and tells her to avenge her. With a tentacle coming out of her forehead, Mira gets the opportunity to kill her. Lee asks Jay to do something about it. Everyone grows tense with each moment passing by. Suddenly, someone kicks the door and demands to know where Sion is. Everyone looks at the newcomer. Turns out it's Gyu standing at the gate while panting heavily. He sees the looks of afraid students and Mira having a tentacle coming from her forehead. He gets confused about what's happening here. The man asks who that boy is, but Mira doesn't have a clue about it as he isn't in her memories. The man orders his subordinate to kill him. He comes toward Gyu with a tentacle coming out of his mouth. Gyu becomes even more terrified after seeing it. Suddenly, Shin screams at him to run. She keeps telling him to run, but he stays still. The man comes closer to him and says he looks like a weak and stupid kid. More tentacles come out of his body and says he's nothing but trash. For them, trash gets disposed of. Suddenly, Gyu comes to his senses and pulls out the gun from his back. He clocks the gun and aims at the man. He looks surprised at him bringing a gun suddenly. Gyu tells him to die and shoots him. Multiple bullets pierce his chest and cause some reactions in the mutated cells inside his body. The cells begin to get unstabilized and he loses his arm. Other monsters get shocked at seeing one of their kind being killed. The man limps towards Gyu, asking him from he got that gun. The man falls to the ground and all his interior splashes out. Students are relieved and scared at the same time. All the monsters looked stunned at the boy bringing a shotgun. Gyu's adrenal rush slowed down and he began panicking again. One of the monsters remembers seeing that gun before and inquires how he got it. Mira tells her comrades to get a hold of themselves as there's only one gun. Shin smirks and tries to cut Mira when she has her guard down. However, Mira counterattacks with her tentacles, but Shin dodges it. Shin tells everyone to run as these monsters have no intention of letting them live. She tells them to scatter in every direction as they outnumber them, and the students follow her advice. One of the students points towards a back door and suggests leaving that way. Another student finds the window open and leads the other through it. The rest try to rush out from the way Gyu just came in. The monster discusses that the kid has no shooting experience and they could kill him easily. One of them leaps into the air towards Gyu while killing other students in his way. Gyu points his gun at him, but he changes direction before he can shoot. He approaches him from a different direction, thinking he outsmarted the kid. However, Gyu manages just enough to notice his movement. He aims his gun in a different direction and blasts off the man's hand. In the teacher's lounge, Miss Kim is talking to someone on the phone when she suddenly hears some gunshots. She thinks she must have misheard it and goes back to talking to her boyfriend. Suddenly, the call ended and she wondered if it was a network problem. She dials again and waits for him to pick up. Suddenly, a strange loud noise comes from her phone and she drops it. The call ended and she wondered what that weird noise was. Back at the auditorium, the man curses Gyu for blowing off his hand. Gyu wonders if him losing an arm isn't enough to kill him. The cells were about to mutate and kill the man, but his friend steps in and cut the arm to save him. The arm falls off and Gyu finds it disgusting. He thinks that there is more than one of them. The man thanks his buddy for saving him. The man extends his hand and grabs the fatty. He uses him as a meat shield against Gyu. However, Gyu clocks his gun and readies himself for another round. The fatty cries and begs Gyu not to shoot. However, Gyu doesn't give a damn about him and was about to pull the trigger. The man senses that the boy isn't hesitating at all and will pull the trigger, so he throws the fatty at him. However, the English teacher comes in clutch and grabs the fatty. He tells Gyu to kill those bastards. Gyu shoots at the man and he leaps into the air. However, Gyu clocks the gun and aims at him in the air. The man, sensing the danger, ducks under and evades the shot narrowly. He looks at him angrily, wanting to kill him now more eagerly. The leader tells them it's time to get out now and Mira agrees. He tells his man to stand down as he doesn't want to lose him too. The man agrees to it and spews out smoke from his mouth. Everyone coughs in the smoke and tries to get out. Soon, the smoke clears and the monsters left the auditorium. The students look around and wonder where they went. Shin feels a drop of water falling on her. When she looks up, she finds the ceiling burst. She wonders if those things are powerful enough to do this. Lee and other teachers look at Gyu holding a gun in front of them. The scene shifts to Sion finding his way back to the school in the downpour. After a lot of struggle, he finally found it. While walking down the wooden logs, he thinks about beating Gyu once he sees him. He thinks that he got lost in the woods because of him. He's also scared as he heard that the forest gets dangerous at night. He reaches the auditorium and wonders if the talent show already got over. He believes it's too early and feels the place to be quiet. However, he's unaware of the fact that someone is lurking behind him. In the auditorium, everything is a mess. A dozen students are dead and many are puzzled. Lee marches toward Gyu and asks where he got that gun. He replies he just found it and Lee further asks from where. He scolds him for missing the whole time. However, Shin tells Mr. Lee that's not important now. Jay also agrees to it as students have died and they don't know anything about those creatures. He says that the most urgent thing is to call the police and proceeds to dial it. However, he hears a strange noise and puts his phone away. Lee asks what's wrong, and he replies he can't connect with them. Lee dials the number himself, but it gets cut to no avail. Students ask if there's no reception, then what will they do? They need to get out of here before they get killed. One girl couldn't handle it, and she vomits out. Another student comforts her, asking if she's all right. She asks what those things were, and the boy replies he has no clue as well. He pinches himself to confirm if it's not a dream. They inspect the dead monster and the teacher gets frightened on seeing it up close. Shin looks at Gyu standing with his gun. She notices that he doesn't have shoes on. She tries to take off a dead person's shoes and another girl questions her what she's doing. She replies she's doing her best to stay alive in this mess. She hands Gyu the pair of shoes and he thanks her for it. She tells him it's dangerous here and suggests moving. As for the gun, she doesn't know from where he got it, but it's able to kill those monsters. Gyu looks at his gun and believes that to be the case. She throws the pair of shoes and tells him to put it on. She tells all of them to move to the teacher's lounge and Gyu should take the lead. Lee suggests that he shouldn't hold something so dangerous and asks him to hand it over. Gyu denies it and steps away from him. Lee tells him to not make things harder for him. When Gyu refuses, Lee scolds him for being underage for holding and firing a gun. Gyu tells him that he won't give his gun to anyone, and if they try to take it, then he'll put a bullet through their head. Lee scolds him for giving empty threats to him. The fatty interrupts Lee and replies that Gyu isn't joking about it. When he was being used as a meat shield, Gyu didn't flinch to take the shot. He asks Gyu if he was really about to pull the trigger. However, Gyu didn't reply and soon they all began leaving the auditorium with Gyu leading them. The scene shifts back to Sion standing in front of the school. He senses someone from behind and turns to look at it. He sees a girl limping towards him. He recognizes her as Hei and asks what she's doing here. He asks if she was supposed to be with Mira, then what is she doing here? However, Hei keeps saying about the monsters and that they need to get away. She becomes unconscious and falls into Sion's hands. He sees blood all over her clothes and a weird stench coming from her. She tells him that all her friends are dead. A creature looking like Mira killed them. Sion is shocked and wonders what she's talking about. The scene shifts to 1 hour later. Other teachers inform Miss Kim about creatures attacking them, killing their students and the PE teacher. She asks if they all are drinking or something. However, Jay tells her that it's true. She believes him and asks if they tried calling the police. Lee explains that they tried but couldn't reach them. He opens the drawer and empties the bag full of phones. He tells the student to look for a mobile that has a signal and call the police. A student tells him that there's neither a signal nor internet. Others check their respective cell phone but find no signal. Gyu also tried sending a message but couldn't send it to crew. On reading his last message, he wonders if he could make it back in one piece. A student asks the teacher if this ever happened before, but she replies this is the first time. Shin thinks it's not a reception issue and wonders what this loud noise means. A student says that those creatures could be nearby and asks what they should do about it. Jay also says that Lee was in the Marines before, but he denies it. He says that the bus will be here to pick them up tomorrow and they could wait here till then. However, Shin says they won't survive if they stay in here. She tells them that those creatures are powerful and can burst through walls like they did in the auditorium. Lee suggests reinforcing the ceiling and walls, but Shin replies that no reinforcement could stop them. Those creatures will find a way to get in no matter what they do. He asks if she's suggesting about going outside. However, she replies that it's raining and nighttime, so going outside is a bad choice. He tells her to come up with a better plan if she keeps questioning him. She asks if any of the teachers brought a car here. Jay replies that one teacher did bring it. He couldn't take the bus because he had some personal matters to take care of. She asks who he is, and Jay replies that person happens to be the PE teacher. However, the PE teacher was already killed by those monsters, and everyone remained in silence on hearing it. Outside the school, Seon asks Hae if Mira turned into a monster and killed her other friends by stabbing through tentacles. She replies that happens to be the case. When she saw Mira killing one of her friends, she realized what was happening and ran for it, escaping narrowly. Seon asks if she finds this funny. He screams at her as everyone is trying to mess with him today. However, Hae tells him to stop yelling as creatures will be attracted. He gets up and says he had enough of this. He points to the building and asks if he sees the dead bodies lying in the front building, then he'll believe her. However, Hae stops him from going there. But Seon laughs and says he's in the mood to see a corpse. He takes Hae along with him forcefully. Hae begs him to not push her over there as creatures are roaming in that place. Seon knew that Hae was a coward, but he didn't know she was such a convincing actor. When Seon reaches the auditorium, he sees the gate wide open. He hears some sound and goes to inspect it. He tells Hae to stay put while he comes back quickly. He reaches inside the hall and sees the door creaking. He slowly goes in there and opens the door. What he sees next freaks him out. He sees countless dead students lying on the floor. He also sees the exploded head of the PE teacher and sweats heavily. At the same time, Shin tells Ju to go to the auditorium together and fetch the car keys from the PE teacher. Seon looks around and finds something melting in front of him. He remembers Hae's words that a creature looking like Mira killed her friends. Suddenly, Hae comes from behind and screams on seeing the mass murder. One of the students is on his last breath and begs them to save him. Seon rushes toward him and asks what happened here. The boy keeps saying that it must be a bad dream and that with some sleep it will go away. Seon tells the boy to get a hold of himself and not close his eyes. However, he's already giving in and calling out for his mom and dad in his last breath. He soon passes away, leaving Seon in utter confusion. Seon looks around and breaks the glass to get the emergency flashlight. He thinks that it's better than having nothing. He sees the corpses of students from the dance club and wonders what happened here. He finds one of them having good shoes and Seon swaps it out with his. When asked about his action, he replies that it's better for him to have it. He says she was right, this place is dangerous and they should leave it immediately. Back at the teacher's lounge, Ju is reloading his gun. Lee sees him but doesn't speak back to him. He asks another teacher if those creatures know they are in there, but she doesn't have an answer for it. They have turned off the lights and closed the curtains, but they can't let their guard down. He hopes that those creatures should be chasing the escaped kids and not searching for them. Shin tells Jae to let them go. Jae says that even if they find the keys, do they even know how to drive a car? It's dangerous for two of them to go out. As a teacher, he can't put them in danger. Shin asks if he would like to come along with them. She tells him they can't sit around hoping they won't find them first. They have to take the initiative. Kim reprimands Shin for talking back to her teacher, but Jae assures her it's fine. He thinks deeply about it and agrees to her condition. Since he can't let them go alone, so he'll come along as well. She explains that having more people will be too noisy, so only Ju-yu, her, and Mr. J will be going out and the rest should stay here. When they hear the sound of the engine, they should run out of the front entrance. Kim is worried about the plan. She hasn't seen what those creatures look like. A student explains that they look like humans but they have tentacles coming out of their skin. She finds this situation puzzling. She gets an idea and thinks about marking them somewhere hidden. Lee compliments her smart thinking as those creatures can shapeshift, so having a mark will tell them who's real. However, Shin tells them that those creatures suck their victim's brain and take their form. She also tells Kim that they take the victim's memories and emotions. She knows this from her previous encounter with them. So, if any one of their brain gets sucked by these creatures, they'll know about these marks as well, thus marking them will be useless. She even deduces that a creature might be among one of them. Everyone gets shocked and looks at each other suspiciously. The trio soon goes on the quest to bring the keys. Jae asks about why she freaked everyone out there. She apologizes to him for doing it, and Ju says that Shin is the type to act alone. Shin also looks surprised at Ju as he's being cooperative. She thought he would have told her to go away. He replies that she isn't wrong. He doesn't want to help them as they never cared about him in the first place. He tells her that she's just like the other students. He would go as far as calling her a traitor. He also tells her that he knows how to drive. Once his father passed out and he drove him to the hospital by himself, he was in middle school at that time. He suddenly points his gun at her and says he doesn't give a damn about people like her. He's getting out of here alone. Turns out Ju was just imagining it. Shin asks Ju to look around that corner. He sees no one there and Shin passes through him. He thinks that in his school life no one tried to help him. He wondered why nobody did anything about it. Others found it assuring that it was Ju, not them getting picked on. While he was being dragged by Seon, he saw Shin in the hallway and called out for her help. They used to play together in childhood and asks her if she remembers him. However, she looks at him and ignores him. Jae places his hand on Ju's shoulder and asks if he's okay. He wanted to know if he's okay as he was spacing out just now. Ju tells him he's fine and they move out of the front entrance. Shin says it finally stopped raining and Jae tells them to stay close. Shin asks from where he got the gun and he replies he just found it. When she asks from where, he explains how he got it from a truck. She inquires what a truck was doing in the middle of the woods and asks what happened next. Ju replies that he saw Seon taunting him, so he shot him. But what surprised him was that he disappeared all of a sudden. He inspected the shot that hit the tree behind Seon. After rubbing his hand through it, he found some green liquid sticking to it. After that, he grabbed the bag and shells from the truck. Before leaving, he wanted to see what was inside the truck. He pulled it with force and opened it. What he saw next in there really shocked him. Before we could know what's inside, the scene shifts to Seon and Hae panting. Seon thinks if they keep going this way, there would be a major road. Hae asks if he's sure about that, and he tells her that he saw it during the bus ride. Suddenly, they hear someone screaming in the woods. Two students run in their direction while crying for help. One of the students gets killed by the tentacle while the other one keeps running. However, the tentacle stabs the other kid as well and he dies. Mira comes out of the bushes with tentacles coming out of her head. She sees the dead student and the darkness that lies ahead. She walks down the road while Seon and Hae try their best to stay quiet behind the tree. However, she halts suddenly, and this startles Seon. She looks in their direction with a creepy face. The scene shifts to Shin asking Ju about what he saw in the truck. He replies that inside the truck he saw multiple capsules. They had numbers written on them. He is about to tell her more, but Jae tells him to provide cover. Soon, they enter the auditorium with caution. Shin wonders if Ju is telling her the truth. To her, the idea of a truck in the middle of the woods sounds strange. Plus, why would he find a shotgun lying on the ground near it? She thinks that after the shell hit, there was another explosion in the creature's body. She feels something off about the gun. Ju kicks the door and enters. The place is still a mess when they left it. Ju thinks that those things weren't here before, and Shin looks for the PE teacher. She leans over to him and rummages through his pockets. Jae hurriedly asks if she found it. She searches desperately and hopes she can find it. She finds it finally and shows them. Back in the forests, Seon and Hae are hiding from Mira. She says how annoying these humans are. She walks away while complaining about not getting the kid's phone first. She's heading to the teacher's lounge to destroy them. She believes they would be fine if they watch out for the shotgun boy. Seon says that she looked exactly like Mira but had tentacles coming out of her. He suggests leaving this place as soon as possible. They walk through the path and see the dead student killed recently. He gets even more shocked at seeing more corpses lying in front of them. He stands still and keeps looking at his dead classmates. Hae asks him what he's doing and he comes back to his senses. He says that she's right, they don't have time to dwell on this. As they pass more corpses, Hae gets more scared and Seon assures her that everything will be fine once they find that road. However, Seon notices that the bridge leading to the road is broken, thus cutting their escape route. Back at the school, the trio are running towards the car. Shin points to the white van in the far corner and they rush toward it. She unlocks the car with the sensor and they get in. Jae sits in the driver's seat and asks if they got in and Shin replies yes. He starts the engine and light flashes at someone standing in front of it. They all get shocked at seeing another creature showing up. Mira stands in their way with a deadbeat face. She tells them to get ready as it's time for the finale of this trip. A tentacle comes out of her mouth and she attacks the van with it. The tentacle goes right through the middle of the car, and they evade it narrowly. Jay slams the pedal and sends Mira flying. She lands a few feet away but is still alive. She asks what kind of teacher he is that drives into a student with a van. She creepily gets up with broken bones. Gyu tells Shin to open the door. Mira lunges at the car and says she will have to report Jay for doing this. Suddenly, Gyu comes out of the door and aims his gun at her. He fires at her and she tries to evade it. However, one shell hits her leg and she feels immeasurable pain. Shin tells Jay to drive and he steps up the paddle. Mira's leg began to mutate where the bullet hit her. Before it could reach any further, she cuts off her leg. She now wants that boy to pay the price for this. Shin asks if he's sure that he hit her, and Gyu replies he believes it to be the case. However, Mira is still coming after them. She runs with all four limbs and jumps on top of the van. She spreads out her tentacles to kill them, and Jay quickly slams the brake. The tire screeches and they send her tumbling down on the ground. However, she attacks one of the car's tires and bursts it. Jay tries his best to maneuver the vehicle but rams it on the edge. Everyone inside rolls and the van tilts to one side. One student peeks through the curtain and gets horrified at seeing Mira. Lee inquires about the sudden noise and he replies that their escape option is cut. Another student peeks and sees Mira standing in front of them with the van turned. He screams about the monster being outside while the other boy tells him to stay quiet. Mira notices them and says they are hiding here. She comes toward them and says they made things convenient as she was heading there anyway. The students get back from the window and tell everyone to get ready. Mira comes close and taps on the window. She asks if they were behaving properly and didn't try to call anyone. She starts breaking the glass while repeating her question. The scene shifts to a shabby cottage. Other creatures are waiting there, and one says his arm will heal in an hour. The leader asks why Mira is taking so long to destroy the phones. He tells 4 to call her. He dials her number but couldn't get any signal. The leader asks what that strange noise was, but he doesn't know about it. Outside their cottage, something more sinister appears. The leader finds the network strange. He senses something odd and looks outside the window. However, he doesn't see anyone. 4 asks what's wrong as if he heard something. He asks if they didn't sense it, there's something outside. 1 says that it could be a wild animal. However, the leader denies it. On the other hand, Jiayu and others are knocked unconscious in the car. Ju recalls talking to his friend. Crew asked if wasn't he afraid of returning to school. When Ju asks the reason for it, he replies that he's getting bullied at school. Crew asks why didn't he tell him, but Ju replies he couldn't do anything about it. Crew says that brute force isn't everything and suggests calling the police. However, Ju doesn't want the police to get involved as it will make his sick father more worried. He asks Crew if he could hang out with him, and he agrees to it. Ju's teacher comes to them and asks what he's doing this late. Ju replies that he'll hang out with Crew today. He leaves and tells him not to stay late. Crew asks who that person is, and Ju replies that he's the Korean teacher. He tells Ju to ask him for help. But he sees his friend sad and says if it was that easy, then bullying would have disappeared long ago. Ju says that in this world weak are weak because they can't fight. Soon he comes back to his senses and hears the window cracking. Mira enters the lounge and students scatter. One of the students tries to open the door and Mira comes behind her. She says that humans can't do simple things when they panic. She kills the girl with a tentacle. Mira suggests everyone escape through the door one by one and in order. She tells them to run, but they freeze in fear. She asks which kid was screaming at the top of his lungs earlier. She grabs one student and asks if it was him. She began squashing his neck and he falls dead on the ground. Lee and other students panic about her coming towards them and beg for help. Suddenly, Ju comes to the window and aims the gun at her. He tells her that she isn't the only one capable of killing them. Mira says he remembers him now. He's a loser boy with the name of Ju. When he stormed into the auditorium, he screamed Sion's name. She deduces that he was planning on using that gun to shoot Sion. She says when Sion and his goons were picking on him, did anyone help him? She asks if he was to kill her, then will these people like him? She asks if the life that he hated so much will magically improve. If he walks away right now, she assures him she won't harm him. He can leave this place and everyone behind him. All he has to do is promise he won't shoot them. She doesn't know how he got that gun, but it won't resolve his problem. Even if he was to shoot her, she would take him down with him. She'll have a few seconds before she dies, until then she'll cut his throat. She asks if he'll accept the offer or not. Lee asks Ju what he's doing standing there, he should shoot her already. Kim tells him not to listen to the monster. Fatty also says that he would have helped him, but he was powerless. Everyone tells Ju to shoot her, and he imagines these people to be the monsters. Ju remembers all the torment he suffered and agrees with what Mira is saying. He says why should he put his life on the line to save these people? The teacher becomes horrified when Ju takes the monster's side. Suddenly, Shin comes behind him and asks if he can trust that monster with his life. She can't believe that he's even considering her offer. She tells him to hate anyone he wants, but they are humans and those creatures are not. She says this is the chance to finish her off and shouldn't let go of it. He puts his finger on the trigger and Mira rushes to attack him. Mira attacks him with a tentacle, but Shin pulls Ju behind and saves his life narrowly. The people inside the lounge grab their escape chance and rush to the door. Mira looks at Shin and says she has a habit of poking her nose in other people's business. She walks toward her and says she will smash her skull. However, Ju saves Shin by shooting Mira. The monster began screaming in pain, saying it hurts like hell. She has to get rid of this body before it mutates. Mira begins to sever her neck, trying to separate her from the rest of the body. Ju readies his gun to kill her, but Shin tells him to hold down. She wants to lure her to the archery range to test something. Mira rips off her head and it comes tumbling down in front of them. The tentacle comes out of her head and Shin tells Ju to run on the count of 3. She counted 3 and they began running for it. Ju inquires about what she wants to check at a time like this. She tells him to just trust her and will need the shotgun for a while. However, Ju replies that the gun belongs to him and won't give it to her. She says she isn't interested in the gun but in the shells he got. Mira chases them while slamming her tentacles all around. Shin tells Ju that she'll only need 1 shell. Mira enters the building and tells them to come out. She climbs the stairs and stares at the empty hallway. She searches and looks around for them in the archery room. Shin calls out to her and stands in front of her. Mira smiles and asks if she ran all the way just to get trapped here. She inquires about Ju and Shin replies that he ran away. Mira finds Ju running away suspicious. She looks at the locker room to her right side and believes Ju is hiding in there. She calls their plan foolish as she predicted it. Mira asks if she remembers the day when she was humiliated on the rooftop. She was bullied by Seon and other students. The real Mira saw this and ran to her side to comfort her. Although she was acting worried, she was happy from within. She wonders what led her to the rooftop that day. The real Mira didn't know about it but found out later. As Mira is about to reveal it, Shin aims the arrow at her. Mira asks if she could kill her with a toy like that. Shin replies it doesn't matter if it's human or monster, but headshots always kill them. Mira couldn't find this more amusing than ever and laughs maniacally. Shin takes the shot and it hits her head. However, Mira takes out the arrow and compliments her shot. She tosses the arrow aside and wonders what punishment she'll give her now. She thinks that separating her head from her body would be spectacular. Since the real owner despised her and she ate her brain, so killing would be the least she could do. She charges wildly at Shin and at the same time Ju comes out of the locker and aims at her. However, she already predicted him coming out of there and sent one of her tentacles at him. Ju notices it and panics upon seeing it. The scene shifts to the time when they were strategizing. Shin deduces that the pellets inside the shells are more important. She empties a shell and small pellets clatter on the floor. She says the bullet holes he saw in the tree were green in color. She asks how his hand reacted after touching them, and he replies that they were okay. She uses the tip of the arrow to make a hole in a pellet. She believes that with this she would be able to fight those creatures as well. The place where the arrow hit Mira began to mutate. The tentacle hits the locker beside Ju and he gets to live another day. In her dying moments, she wonders how could she die to a normal arrow. She bursts up and all the tentacles splatter on the ground. Shin apologizes to the real Mira and says she has avenged her now. She picks up the arrow with green fluid spread on it. At the tilted van, Jae regains consciousness and comes out of it. He walks the stairs and sees the aftermath of the battle. He wonders what just happened there. The scene then shifts to Seon and Hae walking through the forest. Seon hears some sound coming from the darkness. He hears someone talking in the cave. Seon moves toward it slowly and crouches at a safe distance. He wonders if those voices are of his friends. He flashes the light at them and finds that to be true. His friends ask if it's really him. Seon hears them talking about Ju and asks what just he did. Soon after they are sitting in the cave and Chan asks how they'll get out of here since the bridge is destroyed. He asks if they have to go through the woods. However, Sang suggests waiting here till morning. Sion inquires if Gyu has a gun. Sang doesn't have an idea from where he got, but he just showed up with it and killed one creature. Chan suggests Sion to stay out of Gyu's way as he had planned to kill him on sight. Sion scoffs at his claims, saying that a loser like Gyu couldn't pull it off. However, Chan explains how he killed those monsters fearlessly. Sion says shooting humans is different than monsters, but Sang says that Gyu sees them as nothing more than a monster. Suddenly they see someone flashing a light at them. They look puzzled about what's lurking in the woods. Kang goes to inspect it, thinking if the military has arrived to rescue them. However, Gyu grabs him by the shirt and asks if he's sure they are here to help them. He orders Chan to check out the light source. Chan becomes terrified and asks if he's referring to him. On seeing Sion insist, he goes there with a stick to defend himself. Sion and Sang also arm themselves. Sion tells Sang to run if a monster appears from there. Sang inquires about what will happen to Chan in that case. He replies that it can't be helped. Since they are going against monsters who kill without thinking, they need to increase the chances of their survival. He sent Chan instead of him because he's useless and talks too much. He tells Sang to be glad that he is not the one going there. As soon as Chan reaches the light source, the light disappears. He sees a little kid in front of him and tells the rest to come over to him, but they hide behind a rock and Sang wonders why that idiot Chan is calling them. Nonetheless, all of them got to inspect that child while being wary of him. Sang asks if she's one of them, but Chan doesn't feel like that to be the case. Sion looks at the kid closely and sees the logo of Beaver Movers. He also notices that the jacket is not the kid's size. He inquires from she got that jacket. Sang screams suddenly saying it's a monster, but Sion reprimands him to quiet down. He thinks if she's one of them then he could die right now, but something feels off about her. The girl, while touching Sion's stick, says that she's not the monster but he is. Sang wonders why the kid is talking like that and Hei says it's one of them. Suddenly, the kid uses his power and Sion sees a memory of his past. His big brother is lying on the bed and covered in bandages. Young Sion walks to him and cries for him not to go. Suddenly, his brother passes away and he comes back to his senses. He asks the kid what she did just now. The kid begins to imitate Sion's brother and he grows terrified. She comes towards Sion, but he smacks her with the stick. His friend gets shocked at seeing him beat the kid. Sion stands there while repeating that he wasn't the reason behind his brother's death. He pokes the kid's head to check if she's dead. Sion faces his friend and says she is definitely not a monster. However, his friends remain in utter shock upon witnessing the cold murder. Chan asks Sion if he's sure about that as those monsters don't die easily. Back in the archery room, Mira dies and begins melting away. Shin bandages Ju's leg, saying it will hurt a bit. She asks if he ran barefoot through the woods. She bandages his foot and Ju thanks her. She apologizes for calling him a loser before, but also says his idea of letting everyone die was also wrong. Ju suddenly stands up and says she's no better than the bullies. Mira tells him to sit down so she can wrap his foot. But Ju screams at her for ignoring him when he was getting bullied. He doesn't care if they all die. Shin suddenly pins him against the wall and says he's the one responsible for it as he couldn't stand against Sion. She tells him to stop acting like a coward and blaming others. Still, Ju says that she is strong and should have at least helped him. Shin becomes annoyed and screams at him for not understanding what she's talking about. She began crying and says she's not as strong as she seems. Once she went to the roof to talk some sense into Sion. He asks what she wants from him and Shin replies she wants him to leave Ju alone. However, Sion smiles and asks what will she do about it. Would she like to go out with him if that's the case? Shin replies she's not interested in him and Sion makes fun of her. She turns around and leaves after saying what she wanted. He says that she's quite bold to come here alone, but she crossed the line today. One girl hits Shin in the knee and Sion says it wouldn't be right for him to hit a girl. He tells the girls to stomp her. They start stomping her while asking where is her courage from earlier. After a good beating, Sion says even though she's popular they won't go easy on her. She gets good grades but isn't smart enough. He crouches down and says since she went through that much effort, he'll offer her a condition. He'll bully Ju until he can stand up to him and throw a punch at him. He says until then she'll remain an outcast.